Hey everyone, I'm Lauren Terry from brightsonwhite.com, and I just wanted to talk a little bit today about half square triangles. So this is a half square triangle unit. You can see it's half of a square and it's a triangle, and this is abbreviated as HST. So I remember when I started quilting, people would say HSTs, and I was like, what are they talking about? It took me a while to realize that this is what they're talking about, half square triangles. So the simplest way to do this, or at least the way that I first learned, and then I'll show you the way that I do it now, both are good, but is just to get two squares that are cut the same size, and then you draw a diagonal line on whichever square is lighter. So I've drawn a diagonal line. Then you're going to put them together and sew a 1/4 inch on one side of the line and then a 1/4 inch on the other side of the line. Alright, and then it will look like this. So you can see there's my line in the middle and the two seams that are 1/4 inch away from the line. And after that, you cut on the line that you drew. So that makes two half square triangles. So the next really important step whenever you're using half square triangles is to square up the triangles. So, or the half square units, whatever you want to call them. So for this, however many inches wide your squares are, so this is a 5 inch by 5 inch square, I'm going to square it up to 4.5 inches. That means that when I open this up and I cut off these little clippings right here, down at the bottom and at the top, that it'll be 4.5 inches wide. So for a long time, this is how I would do it. First, I'd press this seam to the dark side of the fabric, or press it open depending on your the pattern that you're using, but usually I'd press it to the dark side of my fabric. And then I just had a normal ruler and I'd line up this 45-degree angle with this middle part. So here's the center line of my square, 45-degree angle, line it up, and then I would cut off any excess on these two sides. Then I'd turn it and do the same thing, making sure that I only keep 4.5 inches underneath my ruler. So if you can see right up here, there's a little excess that I'm going to be cutting off, and then right here there's a little excess that I'm going to be cutting off, so that this unit is exactly 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches wide. Alright, and that's called squaring it up. So that just makes sure that instead of it being a little wonky, you can see it looks nice and square. Then I found, this was recommended on Amy Smart's blog, Diary of a Quilter. I don't know if you've checked that blog out, but it's awesome, so you should check it out. She recommended this Quilt in a Day ruler, and it comes in a package like this. And I don't have a lot of fancy rulers, but this is one that I have loved ever since I got it. I use it all the time. Like, it's with I keep it with my just normal rulers because that's how much I use it. So with this one, to square it up, it just makes it a little slick. You'll choose, I'm squaring this up to 4.5 inches. So I'm gonna line up my seam with this 4.5 inch line. So I line it up with my seam there. And then essentially you're cutting two sides at once. So instead of having to cut 4 sides, I cut my 2 sides, and now I'm good to go. And then on these corners right here and here, I'm gonna clip off the corner at a 45-degree angle. And that way, right when I open it up and I press it, it's already square. And so that just has saved me a lot of time. It's super nice. So that's the Quilt in a Day 6.5 inch triangle square up ruler. Alright, now to make it even easier, one thing I've started doing is making 8 half square triangles at once. And this ruler actually has the instructions of how to do this, and I'm just going to show you right here. So you can see before we were making 5 inch half square triangles. And this, essentially, we're just timesing it by 4. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time, which will lead to 8 half square triangles total. So now, instead of doing a 5 inch square, I'm going to double that and do a 10 inch square. So I've cut out 2 10 inch squares of coordinating fabric, and I've drawn a big X on the back of the lighter fabric. Then what you're going to do is sew a 1/4 inch seam on either side of both of these lines. So it's going to be 4 seams total, one right here, and then on the other side of that line, there's your second seam. Then you'll turn it and you'll do 1 seam right here, and then on the other side. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this to that point, and then we'll meet back up. All right, so you can see that I've sewn 4 seams, and they're on either side of the lines that I drew. Now we're going to cut this into our 8 half square triangles. So we're going to start out by cutting on the lines that you drew. Not on the lines that you sewed, but on the lines that you drew. So in the middle that way. And then, sorry, it's a little tricky to see. In the middle that way. Okay. And now we're going to cut one line that runs, what is this, vertically, and then one line that runs horizontally, just cutting it in half. So since this piece is 10 inches by 10 inches, I'm going to cut 5 inches in from the side. And then I'm going to do that again horizontally. So 5 inches in, making sure everything is nice and flush. Cut. All right, and you can see now I have 8 half square triangle units, and it just goes faster that way. So then I would square up each of these units, and they would each be squared up to 4.5 inches. So there you have it. That's the basics of your half square triangle. And before you go, if you want to try out this skill, I use it a lot in my patterns. There's a free download called Flying Arrows for a great beginner quilt that uses this technique. Also, my pattern called Confetti and called Ombre Arrows uses this technique. So go ahead and check those out.